Take a deep breath. You probably just inhaled some plastic, and sadly, you're breathing and eating plastics actually every single day. And all that plastic adds up to almost 50 grocery bags worth of plastic every year. Of course, you're not consuming this plastic intentionally. Instead, plastic is everywhere, from the bellies of fish to pure bottled water to ordinary household dust. It's unavoidable. You probably won't see this plastic floating around in your water bottle, though. Instead, the plastic that we consume every day is really tiny, even smaller than a grain of sand. We call them microplastics or nanoplastics for their ultra tiny size. But even though they're really small, their impacts on human health can be huge. But thankfully, there are some easy ways to limit how many of them we eat. Here's a list of just some of the thousands of different chemicals that are involved with making plastic. A bunch of them are even known to be harmful to human health. You've probably heard of phthalates or BPA before. These kinds of chemicals are allowed to be used in plastic under the assumption that we aren't just eating handfuls of grocery bags, except we are, just indirectly. So before the microplastics come back to bite us, they have to get out into the environment first. Here's how that happens. For starters, most microplastics actually start as bigger plastic and start to break off. You can see this happening with the clothing we wear every single day. A lot of our clothes are made from plastic fibers, and with the stress of wearing and washing these clothes, tiny shreds of plastic start to break off. Some of these fibers will go down the drain or blow out the dryer vent, but they're too small to be filtered out of our wastewater, and they end up in lakes, rivers, and streams. These kinds of plastic fibers also end up as dust around your house, and when you breathe in that dust, you're breathing in plastic. This is actually happening on an enormous scale. Scientists are predicting that over a third of all the microplastics in the ocean are just fibers from our clothing. So once microplastics get out into the environment, there's no stopping them. They get picked up by wind, waves, and weather and end up everywhere. There's plastic in fresh rain and snow and in the soil of our farms. It's been found in the deepest trenches of the ocean and even at the top of Mount Everest. In fact, scientists really haven't found a place without microplastics.
I'm pretty sure that wherever anyone looks for microplastic, it is found. And that certainly has been our experience as well.
Here's how that plastic trash gets back on your dinner plate. If you eat seafood, think about what that fish you're eating for dinner might have eaten before. It could have eaten some plastic masquerading as plankton, or maybe it ate actual plankton that had eaten plastic itself. Either way, there's plastic inside the fish that can spread throughout its body, and when you eat the fish, you're eating that plastic too. Even if you don't eat fish, there's still plenty of plastic in and around our food, from plastic films that leach chemicals into your salad greens to plastic beads in the soil that get absorbed by fruit trees and end up in your apples. Of course, not all sources of plastic in our diet are equally bad. Some are much worse than others. When you drink bottled water, for example, you're actually drinking a lot of microplastics, 22 times more than just drinking tap water. And eating and drinking microplastics isn't just gross. It appears that these tiny particles could be really dangerous when they get into our body. You probably have heard of the chemical BPA when it was in the news back in 2014. Countries all over the world were actually banning it because of its potential health risks. BPA is super common, and you probably have some in your pantry right now. It makes up the plastic liners in canned food, among a whole bunch of other things. But not all of the BPA is sealed inside the plastic. So this BPA leaches out and mixes with the food in the can as it's sitting on your pantry shelf, food which you then eat. So unfortunately, chemicals like BPA aren't quite harmless. BPA is particularly bad. It looks a lot like your body's natural hormones. Hormones are one of our body's chemical signaling pathways. Our bodies use hormones to control all sorts of complicated processes, from growth and healing to puberty and pregnancy. So it's not surprising that our bodies are super sensitive to changing amounts of hormones. And because BPA looks a lot like our natural hormones, our bodies can react as if it were one. Eating too much BPA could disrupt this careful balance of hormones and cause all sorts of trouble, but it's pretty hard to avoid.
We live in these highly plastic environments with like plastic carpets, and we wear plastic clothing and eat things coming out of plastic packaging. So we're probably actually the most exposed animal.
Scientists don't yet know how dangerous the microplastics we consume could be, but it's really hard to believe that they're totally harmless. We might not know how bad plastics are until we've consumed too many and it's too late. We've seen this happen already with other chemicals like lead.
What seems like a great idea and a safe idea at one point in time may prove to be quite toxic later. Plastic in the environment can cause harm, and that harm can start with the creatures in our aquatic environments. Wherever that is happening, there is a risk to humans by extension. I don't want to take that chance.
So what can all of us do? At this point, it's basically impossible to get rid of all the microplastics that already exist in the world. But we can limit the amount of plastic that we eat going forward. Let's just not make the problem any worse. At home, maybe this looks like doing your laundry in colder water and in larger loads. Both would make your clothes send fewer plastic fibers down the drain, and they make your clothes last longer too. You can also be a smart shopper.
Avoiding plastic packaging is kind of like the lowest hanging fruit in terms of reducing our plastic consumption. And so if you're avoiding that, also you're sending a message based on what you're buying, to companies that you don't necessarily want that thing.
We can't get rid of all the plastic in our lives. It's in our smartphones, the walls of our homes, and in our hospitals. But what we can do is say no to plastic that we might use only once. Bring reusable bags to the grocery store, drink from reusable mugs and water bottles, and buy things without plastic whenever possible.
Lots of littles make a big. A lot of little tiny bits of plastic in the ocean is adding up to a big problem. But if everyone made little efforts to prevent or combat that problem, then collectively we can make a big impact.
Plastic has been around practically forever, but we're producing more and more each year than ever before. And that rate of production is only going up, but we can slow it down. Let's think about grocery bags again. Just by saying no to single-use plastics, whether it's a grocery bag or a plastic straw, you're taking a step towards eating and breathing fewer microplastics in the future.